8 p.m. local time, sirens will ring out across Israel to herald a minute of silent contemplation, followed by the official state ceremony at Jerusalem's Western Wall Plaza. You're seeing live pictures from that, and we will bring you that ceremony in its entirety. On today's Memorial Day, the number of those who have given their lives in service of or creating or defending the Jewish state since 1860 stands at 24,068. with the number of terror victims at 4,216. And of course, fortunately, more than a dozen of those fell just over the last month. There will be a second 2-minute siren of remembrance that will ring out tomorrow at 11 a.m., with Memorial Day transitioning later immediately to the celebrations of Israeli Independence Day Wednesday night at 7:45 p.m. With me in the studio during this broadcast is our senior correspondent, Owen Alterman. And Owen, after a couple of years where due to COVID, there had to be restrictions in various ways on these ceremonies, Israel now has an opportunity, those that mourn and remember those that fallen, to observe Memorial Day in its entirety.
Yeah, that's right. And what we're about to see on our screens, the ceremony at the Western Wall Plaza, Calev, is traditionally, the pandemic, of course, is an exception, open to the public. Unlike a number of the other ceremonies in this season of Holocaust Remembrance Day last week and now Memorial Day, and then, of course, tomorrow night with Israel's Independence Day, many of the main ceremonies are not open to the public. So this is a chance for the general public not only to watch on their television screens, as so many will tonight, but also to go there to the Western Wall. Of course, one of many special Israeli moments at this time of year. And unlike the Holocaust Remembrance Day of last week, where the scope of the tragedy is so enormous, here it's more intimate. Obviously, the number is much smaller, but it's much more personal. These are people's own family members, people they served with in the military, their friends. So it's a much more intimate kind of remembrance because, again, we count down to the exact number of people every year. And it's because, I think, it is a number with which people have connections. People have connections with people who are buried in the military cemeteries, who fell in terror attacks. And so this is, again, a more intimate remembrance, although still a very formal state ceremony that we're about to see play on our screens.
Right, and there'll be another ceremony tomorrow at 11 a.m. when the second siren rings out on Mount Herzl cemetery, military cemetery in Jerusalem. But of course, really for most people, it's those individual personal visits to cemeteries across the country or different memorial monuments that families take, friends of the fallen, that really give this day most of its meaning.
That's right, and in a sense, the cornerstone of the day, the highlight, if you will, of the day is actually tomorrow morning. The ceremonies at the cemeteries where families go to the graves of their loved ones who have fallen and stand there as that siren rings at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning and are part of that. But of course, tonight we also have a very moving ceremony at the Western Wall. Again, momentarily we'll hear that siren. The entire country will come to a standstill, as it knows so well through bitter experience how to do. We'll stand for that siren as we start to enter Israel's Memorial Day.
Right, and we're just a little over a minute till the siren starts, and of course during that time the country comes to a complete standstill. Here we see the Chief of Staff, Aviv Kochavi, entering. Of course, he will be giving remarks along with Israeli President Isaac Herzog. You also see it's not the tradition to have the Prime Minister speak at this ceremony. Naftali Bennett, though, will be giving a main address tomorrow at the Mount Herzl Cemetery. We're now seeing the honor guard take place. Of course, there is certainly a military aspect to this ceremony. A lot of what we're going to see on our screen consists of various honor guards. Let's just give a listen now. We're just seconds away from these sirens, so let's just look at the images there from the Western Wall Plaza in Jerusalem.
The torch of remembrance will now be kindled by the Honorable President of the State of Israel. The torch will be handed to the President by Edna and Bar Ben Naim, widow and son of Major Sami Ben Naim, of blessed memory, who fell when his aircraft crashed during the Second Lebanon War on August 12, 2006. He was 40 when he passed.
Dagel, shek. המשמר הכתיב את נשקו. הכתיב, שק.
Izkor, cited by Mr. Dan Liani. Dan Liani was wounded in 1982 during a bloody battle in the First Lebanon War. He fought with the Golani Brigade and lost his eyesight by an explosion that also hit his hand. Two of his comrades who suffered the blow were killed. Dan Liani has created a family. A corneal implant restored his vision, and he was able to see his wife and children. But he lost his eyesight again. Today, he engages in extreme sports and helps other people in his situation. May the people of Israel remember its sons and daughters, loyal and brave, the soldiers of the IDF, its underground fighters and combatants in Israel's wars, and all members of the intelligence community and police, security forces who gave their lives in the struggle for the redemption of the State of Israel, and all of those who were murdered here in Israel and beyond its borders. May all of Israel remember and be blessed by their offspring the sanctity of their willingness and deep devotion of those lost in these fierce battles. May we cherish in our hearts the memory of these heroes of Israel's victorious battles forever and ever.
המשמר יציג את נשקו. אציג, שק. המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד, נוח.
נא לשבת. Please be seated. Speech by President of the State of Israel, Mr. Isaac Herzog.
משמר, דום. המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד, נוח.
The siren that sliced through our lives a few minutes ago is the purest moment in the Israeli calendar, a moment that plucks the chords of our souls, a moment of mighty bitter grief, of memories Malchuyot and Shoforot, a moment that seeks to open the gates of heaven on a judgment day to plead for the people of Israel in judgment. A moment that speaks to the essence of this week, the essence of the state of Israel itself, from the deepest grief to the miracle of independence and rebirth. The poet Natan Yonatan, who lost his son, First Lieutenant Lior Yonatan, in the Yom Kippur War, wrote, "My beautiful son, I keep dying over you day by day. Day by day, I die over you all over again." So many beautiful girls and boys, the most beautiful. And you, dear and beloved members of this family of grief, keep dying over them day by day. And there's no comfort. Beloved families, mothers, fathers, widows, daughters and sons, sisters and brothers, loved ones, warriors, wounded, and victims of terror attacks, heroes of Israel's wars, IDF Chief of Staff, heads of the security services, chief rabbis, citizens of Israel, ladies and gentlemen. Here, at the Wailing Wall, in silence and sacred, we bow our heads in memory of the sons and daughters, the fallen soldiers of Israel's wars, victims of terror, from north to south, east to west, members of all communities and sectors, of all religions and faiths. They served together, and their unity was an obvious fact. They were buried in the soil of this good land and in the binding uniformity of the cemeteries. And their unity is an obvious fact. We remember them, their faces, their voices, their laugh, their shells, the mines. The news of their death. Ehud Shachar, son of Eliza and Aaron Artek, was born to a family that helped found Merchavia in the Jezreel Valley. In 1954, when he drafted, he wrote to his parents, "We are becoming better soldiers in the army of the homeland. We shall do our utmost to defend it." In February 1955, in Operation Black Arrow in Gaza, Ehud was shot and killed with 7 of his comrades. His mother, Aliza, was forced to break the news to her daughter, Michal. "My daughter, we no longer have a brother." A friend from Merchavia, Ilan Bornovsky, carried him on his back from the battlefield back to Israel, to his home, to eternal rest. 3 pairs of parents chose to name their children after Ehud Shachar of blessed memory: Ehud Stock, Ehud Falk, and Ehud Bornovsky. The first infant was Ehud Stock, son of Ruth and Asa, born in the middle of the 30 days mourning period after the falling of Ehud. Soon after, Adina, his cousin, and her husband Simcha, a son was born. His name was Ehud Falk. Major Ehud Falk, an Air Force pilot, was killed together with Lieutenant Colonel Ram Kohler during an aerial exercise in 1988. He was always more than everyone. His friends wrote about him. The most handsome, the most intelligent, the greatest hero. He was buried on the grounds of Merchavia, next to Ehud Shachar, over which he was named. When Ilan Bornovsky and his wife had a son, they also decided to call him after Ilan, who had fallen beyond the enemy lines. Udi Bornovsky volunteered to join the naval commandos, and on a cold and stormy night in 1986 was killed in a parachuting exercise. When his father Ilan, who buried his son, meets soldiers and tell them, we have no other country. He requests, do your best to protect this country. And Ehud Stock, the firstborn, was the last to fall. Udi Stock was the chief officer at Israeli embassy in Turkey when a Palestinian terror group planted a bomb in his car. He fell in March 1992, 2 weeks before his 37th birthday. I spoke this week with his widow, Rachel, who is here with us tonight. She too, like Ilan Bornovsky, asked, protect our country. 3 men called Ehud, all named after the same Ehud. Ehud Shachar, Ehud Falk, Ehud Bornovsky, and Ehud Stock Sadan. 4 men called Ehud, 4 exemplary characters, 4 warriors who, with their names, manners, and bodies, embodied the intensely Israeli mutual responsibility and solidarity that is passed from generations. 4 of our sons, who together with the following generations, just like the generation of Major Sami Ben-Naim, who fell in the Second Lebanon War, and of First Lieutenant Moshe Maleko, who fell in Operation Protective Age, whose loved ones are taking part in tonight's ceremony, are passing on the torch of sacrifice. Those who are willing to risk their lives for our sake, for the sake of our homeland. Dear beloved families, my encounters with you over the years, and especially in recent months, are attached on my heart. The grief-stricken, tired eyes of the father who longs for his son, who has no rest. The stories of the mother with pride and pain, unable to find consolation after her son fell somewhere, and her arms extended as if to hug someone who can no longer hug her back. The sorrow of a young man who lost his warrior sister, the tears of a young lover whose soulmate has left her, and like them, so many, far too many, whose doors grief came knocking, turning their worlds upside down forever. And there is no solace. Their heartbreak is not only for those who once were, but also for those who will no longer be, for their intensely tangible absence. Every day of the year, not just on Yom HaZikaron, the Memorial Day for fallen soldiers, our sons and soldiers who fell in defense, fought together, and fell together. They did not ask. No one asked them who was right or left, who was religious, who was secular, who was Jewish, and who wasn't. The grief did not ask them, not them nor you. They fell for being Israeli, defending Israel. The arguments in the cemeteries are silent. Between the headstones, there is no sound. A silence that demands that we fulfill their single will. Resurrection of Israel, building of Israel, united, consolidated, responsible for each other. Dear friends, the family of the bereaved, over the past year, over the past weeks, and indeed past few days, grief and pain have struck us time and again. Even today, our enemies rise up against us with hateful terror. And as always, they find us ready and determined, with one hand holding on to a weapon, and the other extended in dialogue and peace. It is precisely in these heartbreaking moments, escorting our heroes on their final journeys, whose pain becomes our own. In these moments, we discover again and again the power of our wonderful, marvelous nation, a nation that knows how to overcome any obstacle. Yes, we have a wonderful and marvelous nation. Our hearts, punched by pain, must not allow us to forget the mighty journey that we have undertaken. a journey of hope and fulfillment, a journey that has immense pride, a state whose existence for heroes and heroines of Israel's war have fallen. In these moments, I wish to embrace, to thank, on behalf of all people of Israel, the commanders and soldiers of the IDF, of the Israeli police, of the Shin Bet, of the Mossad, and all of the defense, intelligence, internal security, wherever they are. You protect us day and night with fierce spirit, with determination, with devotion. May God protect you when you go, when you return, for now and forever. My sisters and brothers, citizens of Israel, a song of ascents. So was written in Psalms, when the Lord restores the fortunes of Zion, we're like dreamers. Tomorrow at this hour, we're like dreamers again, when the flag returns to the top of the flagpole. It is thanks to you, the family of the bereaved, and thanks to them. This is our duty to the fallen. It's our duty to you. It's our duty to the future generations to sustain a strong and prosperous Jewish state, democratic state, a state of a mosaic of communities which together create a nation of proud and cohesive nation. From here, from the last remnants of our temple, on behalf of all of Israel's citizens, I send my wishes of recovery to the wounded, physically and mentally, those who contend with scars and sores even when they are invisible. I pray for the speedy return of our captured and missing. The task of bringing them back home remains on our shoulders. May the memory of Israel's fallen soldiers and victims of hostile acts remain bounded in the bond of life and preserved in the hearts of our beloved nation, from generation to generation.
המשמר יעבור לדום. משמר, דום. המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד, נוח.
Speech by Chief of General Staff of the Israeli Defense Forces, Major General Aviv Kochavi.
משמר, דום. המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד, נוח.
כבוד נשיא המדינה,
Respectable President, Mr. Isaac Herzog,
משפחות יקרות,
dear families,
מכובדיי כולם.
respectable guests.
הדרך הייתה שקטה.
The road was quiet.
לוחמי
The
השייטת
fighters of the commando moved with diving and backwards with boats. A half-moon night in 1969, they moved to the island of Green in the Suez Canal, to the heart of the danger, and were ready for it.
4,000 שנה קודם לכן,
4,000 years before,
בדרך לכאן
on a road on the way here,
עמדו בשקט
they walked in silence to the danger,
אל הר המוריה,
to the mountain,
אהוב בנו.
a son and his father, Abraham, who says, I am, and Isaac.
צרורות המקלעים הפרו את השקט באחת.
The sounds of fire
נערו על האי,
broke the silence. The fighters stormed the island
כמה מטווחים קצרים.
and fought from short range.
לכל עבר,
The
וגם
bullets
לכיוונו של
fired in any direction, also towards Chaim Sturman.
הוא נקרא על שם סבו,
He was named after his grandfather,
במהלך משימת סיור.
who died of an explosive during
חיים הסבא גדל באוקראינה,
a guarding task.
וראה את משפחתו ואת הקהילה היהודית כולה,
Chaim grew up in Ukraine and saw
ולהתקפות כבוד.
his family and the community under
לעיר ההריגה,
constant attack and violence.
ביהודים, ולא
Get up,
ביקורת על הגישה הקורבנית,
said
ועל חוסר
Bialik on the riots in the Jews.
משפחתו,
Chaim and his family acted. They saw the humiliation. They heard the scream and listened to their internal voice that called them, "Get up and go to your country." And they said, "Yes, I am." They knew that only our country, with our force, would allow them safe lives. Chaim moved to Israel with his family. Together with his friends, he created the kibbutz Ein Harod and joined the Shomer organization. Self-defense was their motto. He said, "I am," time after time, until that time when he embarked on a mission where he didn't come back. But he gave his son Moses the spirit of defense. The son, Moshe, was among the first fighters of the Palmach. And when his turn came, he said, "I am," meaning he's answering the call. He protected his own home when he led in the War of Independence, his battalion to reconquer a site near Bet Shean. He also did not return from battle. And like his father, he gave his son the spirit of defense. Go, take your faith in your own hands, Abraham was called, and move your life to the Promised Land. The Promised Land has become a developed country with lots of achievements, but surrounded by challenges. This is a reality that called every boy and girl to act on their turn, with the support of the parents and the teachers, to take part in the defense of the country. Dear families, you grew your children, and you also walked with them in your path. They have grown older. They showed talent and marked their lives. They heard the call, and they said, "I am." And you with them said, "We are." They embarked on the mission, defended and attacked, and fulfilled a series of jobs, but they did not have. The majority of Israeli families have awaited their children as they stepped down for the mountain, but you waited in vain. Some of you still wait. They will not return. They will not return, but thanks to them, many have returned. Thanks to them, tens of thousands of lives were saved. And a large part of the security and the achievements of this country is thanks to them. Your pain is unbearable through the body and the soul. It is there and doesn't rest for a minute, and grows bigger on Shabbat, on holidays, on their birthday. The IDF and myself are bowing our head with deep sorrow and appreciation of your strength. Today, as in the past, the IDF is dealing with threats in a number of arenas. We do not allow the relative security stability to become an illusion. The way where wars start in the area and in the world remind us of the requirement for a strong defending force. The IDF soldiers are on guard. They are fighting and saying, "I am." And I'm very proud to command them. The island of Green was replaced by other operations, some of them further away from Suez. Thwarting of terror continues on a weekly basis from north to south, all across the borders. The IDF deters and attacks, goes out of the country's borders to strike the enemy in the air, in sea, and on land, all over the Middle East, to fulfill the principle of self-defense, one generation after the other. Says, "I am." Draft for military service.
ואומרים,
and embodies the opposite of those
כך חיילי
who avoid
המילואים המזנקים בין,
and say, I am not.
כך המשרתים בקבע,
This both for the mandatory and for the reserve soldiers.
כדי לאפשר
That shows an unnormal way of life in order to allow the citizens of Israel to live a normal life.
והם יוצאים לגאיות
The
המורדים.
call continues through the chain of generations.
שם חושפים את מיקום האויב,
From there, they expose the location of the enemy.
מונעים פגיעת אבן,
Only from there, they prevent the hit of a stone or a rocket. And only from there, the enemy is controlled
הוא יסוד
and
שנוכח
destroyed.
בגבול.
I am is a sense that is there on every ambush, in every plane, in every
בקרב חיילים מכל
fighting zone, in every training.
תפקידים. הנני,
I am is the value of the IDF, the
אין קיום לעם,
military of the nation. Without him, there is
ישרתו בו
no existence to the people, and therefore it is essential that it will always be served by the best of the people.
לחימה באי גרין נמשכה.
The fighting through the island of Green continued, and Chaim Sturman, the grandson, the son of the Palmach
אומר, המשיך
fighter and the grandson of the Shomer fighter, continued to advance.
בלי לשאול מה
They did so without asking what's in it for me.
אישי להגנה,
A third generation of defense, a third generation of danger,
אישי שמקבל
a third generation that
ואי לא הופיע.
hopes
חיים נורה ונהרג,
and nothing shows. Chaim was shot and killed, and with him 5 of his friends, but the task was completed.
חודשים ספורים,
Within a few weeks, Amir Brin, his Chaim's cousin, another grandson, was killed just like him when the tank he fought hit an explosive.
ושני
The grandfather, the son, and both grandsons are buried together at the same cemetery.
קשים מאלו, כתב
On less difficult cases, Chaim Gori has wrote his song, The Inheritance. Yitzchak was
הוא חי ימים רבים, ראה,
not a victim. He lived many lives. He saw the good.
אבל את השעה
But that time,
הוריש לצאצא.
he inherited to his
ילדים
sons.
ומאכלת בלב,
They are born,
כתב.
and a knife is in their hearts. That's how he wrote. Like Yitzchak, many served in the IDF
טובים וטובים.
and lived good life.
ואנו עושים הכל,
And we do everything
להרחיק את המאכלת
to keep the knife away from
כאחד.
citizens and soldiers alike. We acquire advanced weapons, new operating systems,
באחריות,
and using our force with sense.
בה בעת,
At the same time, in the name of security, it is our duty to act with decisiveness and fight. Gori was right,
לפחות לעתיד הנראה
at least for the near future.
חפץ חיים,
And as people who want to live, we're required to fight and be ready to pay the price, to show calm
נפגעים
amid
ולדעת להשיב מ...
attacks and know how to fight back at the same time. Experience teaches, and this is also my experience from many meetings with soldiers,
ברוח גדולה,
that the sons and the daughters are born with good spirit in their hearts, wanting to impact and be
רוח המוכיחה שהערכים
and contribute, a spirit that shows that values move from one generation to another.
המילה לישראל היא
The Israeli defense,
מגינים על הזכות
in
לחיים,
the word Israel, is the essence. We protect the right for life, and with that we risk our lives to allow all of us as a nation to fulfill
חברה משגשגת
our right and duty to build a prosperous and livable society.
וזאת המשמעות.
This is the meaning,
משמעות לאומית,
national meaning,
עצמית.
a meaning of self-fulfillment. This is the spirit that we inherited from Abraham, and with that,
התקווה
the faith,
והאומץ.
the hope, and the courage
לשנות,
to act, to change, to create, and to renew.
אלו התכונות
These are
מדינה מופלאה, המהווה
the characters that brought to the establishment of a wonderful country.
אבל מעל הכל,
But above all,
רבים בעם,
many in the people have inherited from Abraham the spirit to say, I am.
לקחת אחריות,
I am, that means to take responsibility, to dare,
שפירושו
and to take a risk. Though that means to contribute and influence, not to look from the side, not to wait, but to initiate. I am,
פירושו לשרת דבר
which means to serve
וחשוב
a
ממני.
greater thing than me.
משפחות יקרות,
Dear families,
יחד עם צה"ל,
together with the IDF,
אני מצדיע לנו,
I salute the fallen.
מצדיע לכם,
I salute you and I hug you, embrace you. I strengthen those who are wounded and the families
ומתחייב שנמשיך לעשות
of those missing. And
כדי להשיבה.
I guarantee we will do everything to bring them back to their country and to their family.
ההולכים ראשונה.
Those who walk first or fall.
משפט
The
שחקוק על
grandfather Chaim Sturman
במילים אחרות,
said, this is a line that's written on his grave. In other words,
זכות אלו
a country, thanks to those who
יהי
walk first, thanks to those who say, I am. May their memory be a blessing.
יעבור לדום. משמר, דום. המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד, נוח.
האבנים האלה, מאת יאיר בן שלום, מנהל היכל הזיכרון. לעתים אין בכוחן של המילים לשאת את מסע תפקידן הגדול.
To carry the burden of their great function,
מול עוצמת
because what is a word
פחד השכול.
in the face of power of pain of bereaved families? And here near the wall, every war.
תפילה של כל אדם.
There will now be a poem recited that was written by Yair Ben Shalom, director of the Memorial to the Fallen on Mount Herzl. Still with me, Owen Alterman. Owen, we just heard the Chief of Staff, Aviv Kovavi, really stressing the sacrifice that Israel's soldiers make, professional soldiers, those serving their mandatory service and reservists. Before that, President Isaac Herzog, interestingly, really trying to stress the way that, at least, if not military service itself, respect for the sacrifice that those make in that service should be a unifying factor in Israel, an Israel that's often so striven by political and ideological disagreements.
Yeah, sitting there and watching the speeches and thinking about everything that's happening elsewhere in the world, there's an uneasy tension that's on display at an event like this, the tension between living in an open society and a democracy, and as Israelis see it, the necessity of having the institution of a military which has a very different set of values, and trying to strike the balance between the two. There's also the issue of religion, which is out there too, which I hope I'll be able to get to either now or after the ceremony. And one way of striking that balance is the route that President Isaac Herzog took by saying that the military actually, in a sense, supports the democracy by being the unifying force that brings a country together. And even if in democratic politics there is often a sense of polarization and division, democracy requires a kind of unity, that it's actually the military that helps to supply. And Aviv Kochavi talking about the need for individuals to take responsibility. It's not the military that's forcing you to do things. It is you who are taking it upon yourself to serve and be part of the military, right? It's coming from the bottom up, the way a democracy does. So it is a difficult balance. I think it's being watched around the world by countries in Eastern Europe who are building their own militaries. I had an interview with the Estonian foreign minister this week. This was hovering over in the air as we spoke. And this is a ceremony I think they'll be watching for clues on that element as well.
Okay, let's go back to the ceremony. There are some religious prayers will be said now.
כי לאויביך יהמיון, ומשנאיך נסו ראש. על עמך יערימו סוד, והתייעצו על צפוניך. אמרו, לכו ונחרידם מגוי, ולא ייזכר שם ישראל עוד. כי נועצו לב יחדיו, עליך ברית יכרותו. העולה אדום ואיש מהילים, מואב והגרים. גבל והמון ועמלק, פלשת עם יושבי צור. גם אשור נלווה עמם, היו זרוע לבני לוט סלע. עשה להם כמדיין, כסיסרא חייבין בנחל קישון. ישמדו והנדור, היו דומן לאדמה. שיטי מו נדיבי מו כהורב וכזאב, וכזבח וכצלמונה, כל נסיכימו. אשר אמרו ניר שלנו את נהות אלוהים. אלוהי שיטי מו כגלגל, כקש לפני רוח. כהש תבער יער, וכלהבה תלהט הרים. כן תרדפם בסהריך, ובסופתך תבהלם. מלא פניהם קלון, ויבקשו שמך אדוני. יבושו ויבהלו עדי הד, ויחפרו ויובדו. וידעו כי אתה שמך אדוני לבדך, עליון על כל הארץ.
משמר יבוא לנוח. עמוד, נוח.
תפילה לנשמות הקדושים. מפי הרב הראשי
Souls of the martyrs, recited by the Chief Rabbi of the IDF,
משמר יבוא לדום.
Brigadier General Rabbi Eyal Krim.
אחינו ואחיותינו הקדושים גיבורי ישראל, אדירי הרוח והמעש שמסרתם נפשכם על קדושת השם, העם והארץ, במלחמות ישראל, בפעולות הגנה, תגמול וביטחון, בעת מילוי תפקידכם ובעת שירותכם, כל לוחמי המחתרות וחטיבות הלוחמים, כל הנופלים במערכות העם וכל אנשי קהילות המודיעין, הביטחון, המשטרה ושירות בתי הסוהר, שחרפו נפשם למות למען תקומת ישראל וכינון המדינה. כל מי שנרצחו בארץ ומחוצה לה בידי המרצחים מארגוני הטרור. זכור יזכור אתכם אלוהים חיים בטוב וברחמים, יקום נקמת דמכם הטהור. ככתוב, ארנינו גויים עמו כי דם עבדיו יקום, ונקם ישיב לצריו וכיפר אדמתו עמו. השם צבאות יגיע אורכם ויחיש קץ עמידתכם. שערי השמיים יהיו תמיד פתוחים לפניכם בנתיבות ובמשכנות מבטחים. תזכו לשב עם מלאכי מרום. תהיינה נפשותיכם צרורות בצרור החיים את אדוני אלוהיכם, כי מלחמת אדוני נלחמתם. נזכה לראות עין בעין בנחמת ציון, ובקיום חזון תחיית המתים שחזה לנו רואה ישראל הנביא יחזקאל בן בוזי הכהן לאחרית הימים, ככתוב, כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, הנה אני פותח את קברותיכם, ועליתי אתכם מקברותיכם עמי, והבאתי אתכם אל אדמת ישראל, וידעתם כי אני אדוני בפתחי את קברותיכם, ובעלותי אתכם מקברותיכם עמי. ונתתי רוחי בכם והחייתם, והנחתי אתכם על אדמתכם, וידעתם כי אני אדוני דיברתי ועשיתי נאום אדוני.
המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד, נוח.
קדיש.
Kaddish,
מפי מר יאיו מלאקו,
recited by Yahu Maleko,
סמל ראשון משה,
father of Staff Sergeant Moshe Asanko Maleko, of blessed memory,
סיור של
a
חטיבה
combatant in the patrol regiment of the Golani Brigade, who fell during Protective Edge
20 ביוני
on July 20th, 2014,
20 היה בנופלו.
20 in his passing.
משמר יעבור לדום. משמר, דום.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דיברי קרותה, והמליך מחותה, ויצמח פורקרנה, ויקרב משיחה. בחייכון ובמכון ובחיי דחול, בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יש שמי רבה מן שמיה חיים וסבה ושועה ונחמה ושדבר רפואה וגאולה וסליחה וכפרה וערך יתבר ויתמסה ויתהדר ויתעלה תעלה שמי דקודשה ביריחו לעילה מכל ברכתה שירתה שבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיה חיים וסבה וישועה ונחמה ושדבר רפואה וגאולה וסליחה וכפרה וערך והצלה לנו לכל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו וברחמיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן.
המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד, נוח.
תפילת
Prayer
אל רחמים.
El Malei Rachamim
החזן הראשי לצה"ל,
by Chief Cantor of the IDF, Lieutenant Colonel Shai Abramson.
משמר, דום. המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. אחטיף, שק.
אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים טהורים וגיבורים כזוהר הרקיע מאירים ומזהירים לנשמות חללי מערכות ישראל שנפלו במלחמות ישראל בפעולת הגנה תגמול וביטחון בעת מילוי תפקידם ובעת שירותם ושחרפו נפשם למות על קדושת השם ובעזרת אלוהי מערכות ישראל הביאו לתקומת האומה והמדינה ולגאולת הארץ ועיר האלוהים ולכל מי שנרצחו בארץ ומחוצה לה בידי המרצחים מארגוני הטרור בעבור שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים וייצור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם אדוני וינוחו ושלום על משכבותם ויעמדו לגואלם לקץ הימין ונאמר אמן.
התקווה.
Now for the national anthem, Hatikva.
דגל, שק.
כל עוד בלב פנימה נפש יהודי הומיה ולפת מזרח קדימה עין לציון צופיה עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים.
המסדר יחטיף את נשקו. אחטיף, שק. המסדר יציג את נשקו. הצג, שק. המסדר יעבור לנוח. עמוד, נוח.
אזרחי ישראל, אנו מזמינים אתכם להיכנס לאתר יזכור של משרד הביטחון ולהדליק בו נר לזכר חללי מערכות ישראל ובכך להעצים את שלום.
Right, and at the closing of the ceremony, the host is inviting the public to either go onto the site, the memorial site that's run by operated by the Ministry of Defense, or in fact to go light candles, either virtually or fortunately now with the waning of the COVID, that can be done, of course, in live ceremonies. That concludes the opening ceremony of Israel Memorial Day. Still with me in studio, our senior correspondent, Owen Alterman. Owen, you briefly mentioned the role of religion here. We should note this is usually a ceremony that sort of mixes both military or martial ceremony with a degree of sort of religious ceremony, traditional Jewish religious prayers and ceremony at a location, the Western Wall, or the Kotel as Israelis call it, that most people think of as a religious site, but also has very significant military history, the site of a major victory in the 1967-68 war. And during the course of the year, the Israeli army conducts many of its official induction ceremonies for new soldiers there at the Western Wall. In fact, it was a site where I was officially inducted into the IDF 32 years ago, and it is quite a striking mix there.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one for me. Again, going back to what we were saying during the ceremony, the balance between democracy and the values of democracy and the institution of the military and the values of the military and the uneasy coexistence